Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legends of Tomorrow, as well as the season finale of Arrow. Like always, when I'm talking about something you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time I'm going to start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Legends of Tomorrow, you can skip to what I had to say about the season finale of Arrow. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is this week's episode of Legends of Tomorrow. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we kind of get the full scale of what Neuron is planning. Obviously, like, he's pretending to be Ray, and I love him doing like a Palmer Tech ad. Well, no, Palmer X. It's like he's doing a commercial as Ray, and it's so weird. And he's like, "Oh, the Palmer hands," or something like that. He made a pun of the whole thing. It's just so weird to see it be a commercial and everything. So the whole plan is to, obviously, as he talked about before, spread fear amongst, mystical creatures and stuff like that, get people believing in them and like, oh my God, be so fearful and scared of them. And then he has his app, and then there's terms of service, which is literally the title of the episode, because it's almost kind of like this real world kind of thing of like, you should be more careful about what you're agreeing to. But in this case, it's like anyone that signs up for the app, and once they kind of agree to the terms of service, they're secretly giving their souls to Neuron, because his whole thing is him gathering up souls that he can get enough power to take the throne of hell. So that's interesting. Obviously, sadly, Mona ended up being kind of like the one he pushes to do it, because he transforms her in front of a whole bunch of other people. Zari kind of gets, uses her powers, and it's like, oh, she's a witch and everything. And it's something I kind of didn't really click in my head to really think about. Obviously, like, they're bigging up the fear of, like, magical creatures, but I can't forget, there is that fear of metahumans. It's kind of interesting, because I feel like you don't necessarily... Well, we've seen tidbits of it this past season in The Flash, of like, there are people who hate metahumans just because of all the metahumans who've gone and killed and hurt people. So there's that side of things, but you never see that really become a thing. It's never that much of a thing. I feel like this season of The Flash is the first season to really emphasize that. I mean, which kind of coincides, with Supergirl, with its like, the whole anti-alien aspects to everything going on Earth 38, in particular with National City in particular, but nevertheless. But it's interesting that, like, Charlie and Zari are in that same situation of like, oh yeah, Zari was kind of demonized for being a metahuman. It's already tough enough being Muslim on top of that. And Charlie's in the same situation of like, I'm a magical creature, so I'm going to be, it's like, that's the thing about, like, everyone kind of is afraid, you put something in front of someone that's different and it becomes this terrible, horrifying thing. Are all magical creatures bad? No. Are some of them bad? Sure. Just like metahumans. Are some of them bad? Yes, but a lot of them are good too. It's actually kind of interesting, because I guess a lot of the stuff that's going down right now, probably even the whole thing with Cicada, is probably going to lead to the future that Zari's from, in the sense that, it's like Argus uses fear of metahumans to kind of turn itself into the world that she's from, that she grew up in, where they hunt down metahumans and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's a lot of different parallels that kind of be drawn with that situation, so I think it's kind of fascinating. They also did a really good job casting the little girl who's playing Zari. She looks a lot like Zari. They did a very good job nailing it. It's always interesting when they do that. I kind of didn't even note that too, because obviously, like, a young Alex and young Kara were chosen for Supergirl too. It's like, wow, you kind of nailed that aesthetic. I mean, maybe they do stuff to kind of help make them look more like style their hair in a certain way and stuff like that. But it's just interesting, like how. But I feel like they nailed it with like the actress who plays Kid Zari. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Just a little tidbit of information, just kind of floating in the back of my head. But it's kind of interesting that Zari ended up leaving Whitstable there. And I think that's going to be like the connection with Steel Seal. Like, even though it's young Zari, when Whitstable, when the time comes, I think Whitstable is going to come through in the end. And he's going to help older Zari, because it's like, even though she's younger, he'll probably still recognize her as being like, oh, that's Zari, that's Mama, or something, So I think that would be something we'll probably see going forward. But along with all that, you have Gary, with the fairy godmother Tabitha, and that whole situation of him trying to get everyone, because she wants to torture him. It's like, oh, torture the legends and, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, oh, he opens up a book club and he forces Nora Ava and Sarah to be there, and I like that he like makes them fast forward, read through it, and it's just kind of like Ava's like, oh my god, that book was awful. And Sarah's like, oh, my head hurts from reading it too fast, and you see Nora have to take a swig of wine for it. And so they're in that awkward situation of like, yeah, we gotta placate to what Gary wants. They try to speak to him about, yo, do you realize what's going on here? It's like, no, Neron's just trying to help the world. Also, Gary has 3 nipples now. It's like, yeah, he gets his other nipple. He got his original nipple back normal, but he also has his demonic nipple. Okay, I wonder, is it still useful, or is it just supposed to be like hey, I have a spare nipple? I don't know what a spare nipple is necessarily going to do for you, especially when it's on a lower part of your stomach, or it's on your lower chest, or rather your stomach area. I don't know how that's going to benefit you if something ever happened to one of your other nipples, but maybe he could just get it transplanted or something. I have no idea. But, because Gary just feels left out, and obviously he wants to be captain of the Wave Rider. I love that whole thing between him and Gideon. I don't know whether that was him, like whether that was Gideon really being like, oh, stop it. He's tickling her and everything, and he's making puns to her, and she's like, that's good. I don't know whether that's, her Gideon playing into it. To be fair, it was probably part of the magical spell, so she's probably under the spell too. Or maybe she's listening, what Ava and Sarah are trying to do and try to placate to what Gary wants. He gets Mick and Nate too. I even love Nate getting kind of pissed. It's like, why are you wearing that, the suit and everything? Which we haven't seen Nate wear that in a long time. It's something I've brought up before. It's like, no one wears their superhero costumes that much. Like, this is the one show you never see the Legends in. I mean, to be fair, they're time traveling, so there's never really that much room to be, like, geared up like that, so... Still, it's just kind of interesting. I love it because Mick is still like, I still want to kill you no matter what. Obviously, Gary, is trying to, it's like, oh, he's having so much fun. Yeah, let's go on adventures and stuff like that. But obviously, the Legends kind of have to set him straight, being like, oh, they're not really your friends. Who are your friends? These guys. And it's like, no, you're not. And it's like, it's sad because you can understand where Gary's coming from because he's tired of being the butt of the joke. And it's just like, all I wanted to do was hang out. Because in his mind, it's like, Tabitha wanted to do terrible things to you, but I didn't want to do that. So that's why I just wanted us to hang out. But now I'm just kind of like the butt of the joke. So he forces Ava and Sarah to dance like crazy. He turns Mick into a big baby by making it so he can't take the pacifier out. And it's like, oh, I got bullied. Nate, Mr. Always Cool. It's like here, gave him like crazy hair, acne, and braces. And, because of him, he was just lashing out. It's like, but it's that thing of like, you're so caught up in your own drama, you're not realizing the danger you're literally putting the world in. But nevertheless, and Gary, when it's all said and done, it's like, no, stop, because Nate made him realize how cruel he was being. And so when the time came, like, Tabitha was like, oh, you thought we were friends? And we're not friends. And it's like, oh, Gary thought he had a friend, but it was like, no. But the Legends, everyone, I love Ava saying what she said. I thought was so good. She's like, I took advantage of you, took you for granted, making you get my laundry, even making you work for free, which she's like, which is illegal, which is like, that's super illegal, Ava, which is like, man, no wonder Gary's super pissed. But then you have Sarah reminder, it's like, dude, Gary, you literally fit in with the Legends. You're trying to be cool and everything to be one of the Legends? No, we're literally all losers. Once again, and I've always talked about this being the coolest thing, reminding you why this particular bunch of heroes was chosen, because like we had the original Legends had the least amount of impact on the timeline, so that's why Rip chose us. So we were a bunch of losers, and somewhere along the way, I guess we got so cool that we kind of forgot about it. It's like, no, you're still the losers, but you guys are my losers. You're some of my favorite losers in a good way. Make me proud to call myself a loser, So I love that. But it's like, Gary, come on, you're part of the loser club. Yay! Which is kind of interesting because obviously that's a thing in it. But nevertheless, I didn't even think about that while I was saying that. Nevertheless, I just thought that was kind of interesting. Obviously, there's everything with Nora too. Nora and the fairy godmother. It was kind of interesting. I felt like she had something up her sleeve because she was getting on close to Nora. She's like, "Oh, you're a witch," and everything. I thought it was kind of interesting because Neron did bring up the whole reason why Tabitha is like, "Oh, not everyone in hell deserves to be in hell." You kind of know that better than anyone, John, right? And so Tabitha talks about the fact that she was locked up for like 327 years just because she sprinkled a little bit of fairy dust, helping out a little girl whose mom was accused of being a witch. I wonder if that's some Crucible stuff or not. I'm sure. I mean, obviously it's in Salem and stuff like that, but specifically, or was it just kind of like it's probably someone historically, because I don't know how much of the Crucible is actually historically accurate. I think it's based on real events in like I think so. Like, the people in the Crucible are real people that really happened to. I think. I haven't read the Crucible in years, so I don't remember. Nevertheless, I'm going off of a huge tangent, but it's kind of interesting. I was like, what is Tabitha up to? It's like, is she really trying to look out for Nora? Because she was like, oh, in a different life, we could have been friends. Because I love her being like, oh, she fell in love with Neron because he was there for her when she was in hell and everything. And it's like, I know what you're thinking. He's so much older than me. Of Nora being like, sometimes you just have to look past age. It's like, oh, in a different life, we could have been friends. Makes you wonder, probably could have been the case. But it's like, oh, you're a witch and I'm a witch. It's like, oh, help out Mona. I'm going to put you in the same cell. I was like, she's definitely up to something. Well, then lo and behold, we kind of find out what it is. She's willing to help Nora help Mona, but she has to become a fairy godmother first. But the thing is, obviously there's, a lot of fine print, which is kind of interesting considering the whole terms of service aspect to this episode. So I guess it fits in many different facets of this episode. Is an aspect of, like, there are rules, there are conditions to be a fairy godmother. Obviously, you can't hurt anyone. You can't do anything of your own free will. You kind of have, the only thing you can do is help your charge. So she was originally charged to Gary, so the moment she gave her powers over being a fairy godmother to Nora, Nora became in charge of Gary, which is interesting. She's like, ugh, Gary? And she looks so pissed and disgusted by it. Also, it kind of looks adorable seeing, like, because it's super not Nora, but to see, her kind of dressed up like a fairy godmother is just kind of interesting. But I love it that Gary's trying to help out. He's like, you know what, fairy godmother, go to hell and help John Constantine. And then Nora's like, oh, crap. She's like, Gary, you dick! I love it because Gary didn't turn around. It's like, even when Gary's trying to his best to help, he kind of screws things up because they're like, no, Gary. It's like, oh, crap. Now you just ended up sending Nora to hell. It wasn't like you sent Tabitha to hell to help. So now Tabitha's kind of just full-blown witch. Obviously, she can do whatever she wants to because she's not bound by the rules of fairy godmother anymore. They have Charlie now because Charlie sacrificed herself to make sure that everyone else got released that was in a prison. It's kind of interesting too because, like, because Charlie obviously, like, was kind of scared. It's like, I don't want to die or I could get locked up. But Zari's like, the fact is my brother told me to run. I never forgave myself for doing it, and neither will you. And so I love Charlie being like, if I die, I'm going to haunt you. And it's like, oh, Zari being like, I'd love to have a ghost friend, which I'm wondering, is that supposed to be a reference to something? I guess it's me overthinking it. It's a huge leap because I'm sure that's not even what they were aiming for. But obviously you could be like a wink and a nod to, like, Larry from, like, Doom Patrol, him and the whole spirit inside of him situation. Negative Man, like, you could make some huge leap. I'm sure that's not where they go. My mind just immediately goes there just because I'm slightly more familiar with Doom Patrol now, so that's where my mind goes. But I'm sure there might have been something else there. But it's probably just kind of a cute line of like, oh, I'd love to have a ghost friend. Now I'm sitting here thinking about it here, talking it out loud. Probably like a Casper reference, because it's like, oh, Casper the Friendly Ghost type of situation. Nevertheless, once again, I'm running my mouth. But they did end up rescuing all those creatures. I think I forgot, because I saw his name at the end credits, but Paul Rubin, Once Upon a Time, Pee Wee Herman, which is kind of interesting, little DC trivia, which I didn't realize at the time. It's just kind of fascinating. Paul Rubin's, I'm forgetting which one. Is it Batman Forever? The one with Danny DeVito as Penguin? Apparently he played Penguin's dad in that movie, which I didn't know that. I do know that in Gotham he plays Penguin's dad too. So I didn't know that until like well after the fact. I think that was something I brought up in the final season of Gotham. It's just kind of interesting because all the DC connection right there. It's just fascinating in my mind, and it's just like, oh, here he is. Because I'd almost completely forgotten about the puppet, the Stein puppet that was possessed by the soul of a serial killer. I was like, I'd almost completely forgotten about that. Also, I love the little gnome and, the mummy, the minotaur, just all these different supernatural creatures that she was able to get out. And I love Sarah being like, don't worry, we'll do what we always do. And I love Mick being like, come together into a stupid, basically come together and become a stupid Bebo or something. I'm like, let's not forget, that's how season 3 ended, and it was glorious. I loved it. So there's that situation. So, and then obviously there's everything in hell. Because obviously every demon knows, like, oh, John Constantine's here. It's kind of interesting because there was that lady he ran into. I mean, I guess that's just kind of a typical any human becoming like a demon type of thing, because her eyes glowed red. Remember, that's what Nora's eyes looked like when she was becoming more and more consumed by Mollis, which is interesting. I wonder, is that what that's supposed to be, or is she not just a regular person? Because, like, was the holy water meant for her or someone else? Was that supposed to represent the fact that her soul is being eaten in a way that she's more demon than human now? I don't know. It's actually kind of interesting because apparently, I mean, it might be very foreshadowing now, but Neuron had made a reference to, like, oh, your dad, things like, who do you think is suffering more, Ray or your dad? Because apparently your dad's going a little crazy in hell. And the fact is, we now see that Nora's there, means that she's going to run into her dad. It's like, yeah, give us some more Damien Dark. In particular, Legends of Tomorrow Damien Dark, just because that's a whole new breed of Damien Dark. Especially just, because I love Neil McDonough as, I really liked him as Damien Dark in Arrow, but he really shines in Legends. In particular, him from Season 3, because obviously, like, him in Season 2 was him in the past, but still kind of that same charisma and charm. You're like, oh, I hate you, but you're so cool. I love it. You're so funny, too. So I think we're going to see Nora kind of get reunited with her dad, which is probably going to deal with a lot of her kind of face. It's going to probably make a lot of stuff kind of come full circle, kind of her, getting to finally say goodbye to her dad, because she didn't actually get a chance to actually say goodbye to him before. So this is probably going to be like a lot of closure for her. Obviously, it's not just about that. It's also about saving the man she loves, which I'm sure that's going to turn into a conversation. He's probably going, wait, out of anyone, Ray Palmer? Really? Like, I hope that Damien Dark is in the next episode. I really hope so, because I think that'd be so good. It'd be very befitting. Like I said, it's just interesting that Nero would reference that, and now we see, because I didn't even think about it until now, but it's like, yeah, Nora's in hell now too, so we'll see. But it's sad, like, it was kind of interesting kind of seeing, like, the hierarchy of hell. Like, it's, I forgot the second demon names, but it's like Satan and Beelzebub, but three, I guess the top head honchos, the under hell. It's kind of interesting too, seeing Satan pull up his wings like that, just because obviously, season 4, of Lucifer, kind of spoilers. Like, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. And it's also DC, so, well, it's Vertigo, but Vertigo's under DC Comics. It's a whole thing. It was just kind of interesting to think about it. I'll leave it at that. I know I ended up spoiling things anyway. It just made my mind go, that's just interesting. I just happened to see that kind of like days apart from each other, but nevertheless, John had to choose. Is he going to save Ray or Astra? And now it's in that tough situation. And I was wondering, is he going to make that sacrifice? I was like, is he going to? And it's like, nope. I was thinking, like, he's still going to go with Ray, but it's like, no, Astra. Because for one, she's a little girl, and it's like, it's his fault. Like, Astra's situation is mostly his fault, so he feels the most responsible. And it's kind of sad because, the Ray situation is probably kind of similar to, like, the whole Desmond situation to a certain degree. More so, Desmond and Astra kind of align more so in that aspect, but you can see the similarities, like, Ray and Desmond too, just kind of like trying to do the right thing, but it just kind of backfires. I mean, to be fair, the same thing kind of happens with Astra. It's just kind of a trifecta of just kind of like, more and more guilt on Constantine's mind. Sadly, when he shows up there, though, Astra isn't that little girl anymore, which does beg the question, do you age in hell? Apparently so, because she's an adult now. So either that's just a situation of, like, she learned how things run in hell, so she makes herself look like an adult because it's like, I can't be this scared little girl anymore, so she kind of found out how hell kind of run, and so she makes herself look like that, so she doesn't feel like because you had to be a certain person to kind of survive in hell, so maybe she made herself look like that, but she's still actually that little girl. Maybe if she actually went back to Earth, she'd look like a little girl again. Maybe not. Or maybe, like I said, maybe you just straight up age. I wouldn't think you'd age in hell, but who knows. But obviously, because of her being there, she's not the same person she was anymore. Which I guess you can almost see the parallels, because that's another aspect to it too, because Nora and Astra, and that might be an element they play with, is the fact is that Nora is able to kind of convince Astra to kind of lead us all behind, because like, I was literally in your same situation, because of, in the same regard, because of John Constantine too, like he tried his best, but it just didn't work out, that whole situation. So maybe that's something we'll see, but obviously she's not willing to go, and now because of that, John's deal kind of gets slashed through, and it's like, yeah, Neron's kind of a pain, but at the very least, you torturing you is a lot more of a pleasure for us. Now John's being tortured. You know, it's kind of sad because, like, he finally tried to make up for what he did all those years ago, failing her to be, you know, save her, and now he has the opportunity and she's the one to be saved. But we'll see. Hopefully everything kind of works out in the end. Obviously Charlie is being, you know, used as a means of, like, oh, she can shapeshift into any creature, so she shifts into other creatures, scares more people, you know, obviously making it seem like, oh, there's not just one magical creature running around causing problems, it's multiple, it's this, it's that, it's that. So kind of increasing the fear, because it's like, if it's just one thing, that's one thing, but it's like you got to make it look like there's multiple things kind of running amok that cause fear to rise. So I'm curious to see how this also ties into Zari's future and stuff like that, just because, well, her picture is out there and she's kind of wanted as, like, well, I'm sure there's not going to necessarily be the connection, but her face is still out there, so she's kind of like a witch and everything. So I'm curious to see how this all plays out. The next episode is, in fact, the season finale, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they end up wrapping this all up. Because let's not forget, we got good old Gary on our side too. It's like everyone, all allies got to come together for this final showdown against Neuron. I'm excited to see how this whole situation plays out. And now moving on to the season finale of Arrow, a fantastic season finale, dude. So much crazy stuff went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, you have the team being wanted by the cops because it's like, oh, that one cop, he's unconscious, so he couldn't tell us whether you guys are bad guys or not, so it's like freeze, so they have to take a run, so now they're being wanted by the cops. It kind of sucks because it's that whole thing of like, all we've done for the city, and they literally turn on us like that. I mean, it's like, yeah, are we forgetting the fact is there was another Green Arrow running around, but sure, lo and behold, you know. So now it turns into that complicated thing, though the team isn't alone because Laurel shows up and so does Curtis. I love Curtis saying that line of like, don't die. He's like, and Felicity's like, ooh, and he's like, I'm sorry, I'm a little out of practice with all of this. But it's nice to see kind of the team in full trying to save the day, because obviously Emiko's trying to release her virus, but no one's really listening. It's like, dude, it's like, you guys are bad guys, you should go be locked up in jail. Do you have Turner come up, knocks the dude out? It's like, he's trying to save your life. It's like, ask questions later, just tell me what you need. And it's like, they're working together. It's like, dude, this is it. That was actually some pretty brutal. That bacteria, that was some, like, which Indiana Jones is that? Once again, I'm using a reference I'm not that familiar with, but you get the reference I'm trying to make. That was pretty brutal. Like, that, I'm sure that body we saw in particular was that lady who got it directly to her face. I'm sure even if it landed somewhere else on your body, a whole bunch of people still ended up dying from it, though. Because it's interesting, too, the whole conversation of Oliver trying to still save his sister. Because for him, you know, and even, you know, Turner and Laurel kind of agree, because Laurel's like, honestly, I should kind of think, Emiko, if she had forced me into that situation to be like, oh, kind of even think about being Black Siren again, I wouldn't have realized, like, holy crap, that's not the life for me anymore. That's not who I want to be. Even Turner's like, look where we are. We changed. You would have never thought you'd be here with me and Laurel in this situation, but lo and behold, here we are, you know? So there's still kind of hope, you know, still hoping to try and change her. And so obviously this coincides with everything in the future, because it's like, oh man, like the Zetas are here, but lo and behold, you have Connor snuck in disguise as one of them, and everyone in the team working together to kick some ass. So now they have to take down, well, Zoe shows up to help save William and Renee, because the whole plan is, and it's kind of interesting because it's like Galaxy 1 kind of wants to roll out kind of like a martial law. Basically, they want to make it so that the Glades, the rest of Star City represents that, and I'm sure it's not just going to stop there. Eventually, it's going to spread and go worldwide. They're going to try and plan out some stuff like that to make it so that the world kind of adopts that similar mentality. But the thing is, you know, they're willing to do this for anyone that has a crime under their belt, no matter how small of it is. And, you know, Renee's like, literally everyone outside of the Glades has a crime against their belt, so they'd all be, you know, it'd be a lot of bloodshed, you know, kind of like some like worldwide overcorrection of trying to do good in the world. So there's that. But luckily, Zoe shows up in time to save William and Renee, and the whole team's together. And now it turns into a situation, okay, so what do we do? Turns out Mia's the only one that can get past the Archer system because her DNA isn't in the system. Lucky for her. To be fair, she was kind of off. Well, she wasn't born yet. Plus, they kept her out of, you know, reach. We know that, you know, I mean, it's me bouncing around, but we do know that obviously they were secluded for a while. So there's that. And I do love that the episode in very nice points kind of bounces back and forth, because obviously for one it's like, yo, you seen the team work together. It's like Roy, Diggle, and Turner kicking ass against all those Ninth Circle people. I love it. It's just like, yo, that looks so sick. It's like villains and heroes working together, dude. Oh, it's so good. Also, it's kind of neat, too, because even the Ninth Circle is turning against Emiko, because it's like, we cause destruction in Star City. That was the whole point. That way, you know, we make some profit. The fact is, this has grown beyond that, because now this has turned into a little personal vendetta against your brother. This isn't what we signed up for, because now, because of what Emiko's done, they're in the spotlight now. We were a secret organization. For the first time in history, we're out in the open and kind of exposed. So there's that whole circumstance with it all. Virgil, even this woman Beatrice shows up too, so that's a whole thing. But I love the conversation between Oliver and his sister. He's still trying to give her a second chance. They were able to stop, you know, the device from activating. But the fact is that, also, really quickly circle back to it, the police are on the team's side. So I'm like, oh, I wasn't expecting it. It's like, oh, home dude woke up and he's like, hey, guys, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. I'm like, okay, so what's happening here isn't what necessarily led to vigilantes necessarily being the bad guys. So maybe it's something later on. Maybe it's a situation of their desperation to save the city at later points in the timeline or whatever. Ended up them crossing the lines where it's just like the world kind of turned against vigilantes. I have no idea. Maybe so it's just so interesting, because I thought like, okay, maybe this was point A leading to point B, but it's more like point A to point E, and there's a lot of B, C, and D in between that. It still needs to be figured out, but we'll get to that, you know, soon enough. Really quickly, I really liked the fight between Emiko and Oliver. It was pretty neat, especially there's that one thing they did where they kind of grabbed each other and they kind of rolled and kind of like threw each other, kind of a throw roll, but like the camera kind of shifted at the same time. I was like, ooh, I liked how you did that. That was pretty neat. Every once in a while, I'll pay attention to camera stuff like that, where I'm like, oh, I like that you did that. Just, I don't know, aesthetically it was cool. But nevertheless, it's kind of interesting to see them kind of go toe-to-toe. And I did like what Oliver had said. It's like, basically, you don't... Because it's so interesting, because like the whole point that Emiko's doing all this, because she wants to make Oliver suffer. Hence why she's trying to destroy Ray Palmer Tech. She's trying to destroy Palmer Tech, because it's like, hey, this was once Queen Consolidated, so this is like symbolic of me reigning and destroying the Queen name. But I like the conversation Oliver had with her being like, the fact of the matter is you want me to suffer and everything. It's like, I've literally suffered already. And I'd already talked about this in previous recording. It might have been last week's or it might have been the one before that. But it's like, you want to destroy my life? It's like, the moment you didn't warn our dad about what went down, you sent ripple effects that would affect my life, that affect all the people I've lost. Like, she put him on this path and it led to him losing so much and so many people. He suffered enough. It's like, she thinks, because I think in her mind, she's still thinking like, oh, Oliver hasn't suffered enough. It's like, he went through a lot. He was literally on Lian Yu. The equivalent to hell in certain regards. Like, and all of that he went through in those 5 years. Everything that he's gone through over the course of this series, like since coming back to Star City, is because of her. Everything that he's lost. It's like, I wanted to kill you for that. So it's like, I understand how you feel. But for him, it's like, I see the hero in you, but you went down the wrong path. He's like, the fact of the matter is, you're responsible for your own mother's death. And she's like, no, I'm not. Dante is. And Dante's only came after your mom. Why? Because you were part of the Ninth Circle. He was trying to clear your mind so you wouldn't be concerned anymore, so you'd be more focused on the Ninth Circle. So if you never going after the Ninth Circle, joined up with them to get your vendetta against our dad, none of this would have happened. So you were essentially your own destruction. You led yourself down this path the moment you gave into the darkness, you know? And it's like, but the fact of the matter is, we can end this now. Like, the fact of the matter is, we can end this cycle, you know? And the thing is, Emiko was starting to listen when Beatrice shows up and stabs her, but both of them working together, and she's like, you're still here. And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to leave my family behind. And then both kicking ass, you know. Sadly, when it's all said and done, though, Virgil and Beatrice end up getting away, so... And sadly, Emiko ends up dying. And it's kind of like, dude, that's sad. Like, you could tell she was on her path to redemption. It would have taken a lot. It wouldn't have been the easiest thing. But Oliver did. Because I think it's a good thing that Oliver wasn't going to kill her. The fact is that he showed her at the end, like, who he was and who she could have been. And she, you know, ends up apologizing. You know, it's like, And she ends up stating the fact is, and it's something that Oliver thought about last episode of like what Emiko would say, and like she says it. It's like the fact of the matter, she's like, I'm sorry, everything's kind of set in motion. I made sure that like Felicity and the baby wouldn't be saved. So I guess like upon her death, there's still going to be things kind of in place that would have come after Oliver and Felicity, so they have to get off grid. And so obviously once again it's still that whole thing of like the Ninth Circle is a public thing, but still they're out there kind of free to kind of do what they want. To be fair, the law is kind of coming down on them now. Whether they're 100% taken care of, I doubt. They're probably still potentially a threat because Felicity kind of kept everyone hidden no matter what, so it seems like that's still something to be worried about. Obviously, you know, in the future, Felicity's worried about, like, man, it's like William and, you know, Mia, because for her, it's like her final promise to Oliver was to give them some semblance of a normal life, to protect them, and it's like she kind of feels like she failed as a mom. Because Renee's like, the fact of the matter is they're going to be okay. Look at Zoe. I taught her everything there was to kind of be about a hero, but to be a hero, and look what she is. She's a grown woman. And I'm not worried because I know she can take care of herself. But for Felicity, you know, I mean, it's that thing as a parent, you know, especially for her, because obviously, you know, get to it soon enough, but it's like she kind of had to, you know, it became her concern. Like, she's so worried about both her children. And the fact is, everything could potentially go wrong. It's like, because that weight's kind of been on her shoulder for years and years, and that's something she's kind of had to carry on her own. So there's that. Luckily, Mia was able to, you know, shut down, you know, because they were able to implant a virus because of her DNA and everything to shut down the Zeta, the Archer, for a little while, but not completely. I thought it was pretty neat, though. Like, Roy did give her the bow and arrow, so it's like, of course, so she's kind of like the new Green Arrow, I guess, which is interesting considering, and I think that's kind of a nice, I don't know if he typically has a daughter. I guess because it's like, I guess it's almost kind of making up for there not necessarily being an Artemis. I guess it's kind of what it's kind of making up for, because they kind of had Artemis, but obviously she kind of went down a dark path in season 5, so there's that. But I think she's the one, to be fair, like, William isn't the one that's well trained. Mia is. She's been trained to be this, so I guess she's kind of like the, which is interesting because it's like, obviously, like, Connor Hawke is the one who takes his father's place, which typically he's Oliver's son, but in this continuity he's Diggle's son, when in actuality he's Turner's son, but adopted by Diggle and Lila. And so he's not the Green Arrow. Mia is, which is still pretty dope. I like that. It's still in the family and everything. So, and I think it's because I think amongst the family, like, she's the most like Oliver. She's super stubborn like her dad. So it's very befitting that it kind of gets passed down to her. She's very skilled with it. I did like the kind of cut back and forth between, like, her, like, escaping, you know, from the explosions, just like Oliver did, like the cut back and forth between the past and the future like that. It's also interesting too, because she was telling, like, William is like, you know, take care of mom, you know, she's already lost so much, but William's like, dude, I just got acquainted to the whole idea of having a sister, not about to lose you now, so hey, you got time, get out of there. So that was pretty neat. And obviously cutting back to present day, like, they were able to stop everything, and it's like, hey, we're still heroes again. Everyone's got their thing. Like, Curtis is going to go off and, you know, get engaged to Nick. So it's like, hey, things are working out for him. And, you know, Turner walks away, but it's still kind of sad because, like, you know where Turner's future potentially leads him, since Diggle's the one that ends up taking care of Connor. So there's that. And you have the original, well, a combination of new and old Team Arrow there. Roy wants to go off, not necessarily 100% to find Thea, but also to kind of figure things out because, you know, he killed those 2 innocent cops. And, you know, Oliver saying, like, hey, we got to take a step back from all of this, not really telling the team why, but it's like, I didn't save the city, this team did. The fact of the matter is, he was like, my legacy, he thought, like, I started this mission alone and that I would end it alone, you know, that he died doing it. But the fact of the matter is, look what's happened, look at what we've accomplished as a team. This team, it's my legacy, this family, it's his legacy, you know, and I thought that's such a beautiful sentiment, you know, it's like all of them kind of together hugging and everything, and to have Felicity and Oliver kind of walking away, it's like very, because obviously you could tell that's where this was heading, like, no matter where the Arrowverse goes into the future or beyond, that this is setting up the legacy, you know, and I think it's so neat, especially considering the fact that Arrow is what started the Arrowverse, you know, and I think that's so... I like I don't know what the word would be, like, you know, how it kind of comes full circle in certain regards, you know. I like that, you know, And Diggle helps out because obviously he knows the truth about, oh yeah, they got to protect the baby and everything. So until the Ninth Circle is dealt with, they have to stay in. So I guess the Ninth Circle never really was officially ever dealt with, or maybe it was, but you know, Felicity being so scared, she kind of stayed in hiding. I was like, if I had to do the vigilante thing, sure, but I'm gonna keep Mia and William away from all of this. But I mean, because you even see the torch being passed in the future, because it's like, yeah, we have to go in hiding because we're going to be the ones considered the fugitives, which we're fine. We're used to that. So Renee, Dinah, Roy, and Felicity are the ones going. And it's so interesting because obviously there's the whole like, what was the mark of four, you know, the four things representing a hero that's supposed to bind them together. And it's like the four of them are like, we're going to take the fall for all of this so that you four can be here to protect the city. It's like, you know, Connor, Mia, William, and Zoe. And I guess they're kind of almost putting it like, well, because Zoe's going to be leading the Canaries now, you know, stepping in for Dinah. So that's kind of interesting. Like, there's so much about that I find fascinating, but it's like, you know, that combined with obviously everything present day, you know, they're saying their goodbyes to Diggle, but it's like, hey, it's only going to be a little while, but, you know, it ended up probably being a lot longer than they were kind of expecting. To be fair, we still don't 100% know, like, everything that went down in between. Maybe she had crossed paths with the others subsequently, you know, because obviously everyone was kind of thinking like, oh, Felicity was pure evil and stuff like that, like, oh, she was the one behind all the bombs and stuff. So there's that whole situation. Obviously in the future it's like Star City, you know, the Glades is opening its doors essentially to Star City, and there's going to be a whole bunch of people trying to take advantage of that, so they have to, the new heroes have to kind of step up and be there to kind of make sure everything stays in line. Oliver, you know, Felicity spending their time together. It seems like they only had a couple months together, obviously, you know, until Mia was born. And lo and behold, who shows up? The freaking Monitor. I was like, whoa, we're doing... I mean, it makes sense, but it's like, okay, so what does Oliver owe? It's not necessarily his life, per se. It's the fact is, he needs to be what's needed for the multiverse thing that's about to go down. Obviously, the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Like, and that's something I've talked about. Like, I think it's so fascinating about this whole situation. This is the first time a crossover has had, like, a major impact. Like, obviously, like, they have, but they're not usually referential like that. Like, they might make references here and there, but it's never, like, a long-lasting effect on the Arrowverse. This is the first time it's had, like, a major effect on the Arrowverse, because the Monitor's like, Oliver, I've seen your future. It's kind of like an undeniable future that he will die. And it's like, dude. And for him, it's just like the time, he just got everything he wanted. He's got a baby girl on the way. He's planning on getting his family back together. It's like, oh, we're going to have joint custody with William, with the grandparents. He wanted that, but obviously this came up and he never had the opportunity to. And, you know, kind of handling everything, you know, Felicity did what she thought was best to protect everyone, you know, especially kind of handling this whole situation on her own. Because they tried to keep the team as much away from this, obviously, about Mia as much as possible, because like they didn't want them to be targets with this whole situation, because they're the main targets by whatever it is that Emiko set up with the Ninth Circle and stuff like that. But, you know, the team would still be targets, but not as much of a target as, you know, it's like, oh, this is like the final order of our previous boss, which that begs the question, who's taking over? Is it Beatrice or Virgil? And that's kind of an interesting thing. But nevertheless, Oliver's got to say goodbye to his family, and it's like him trying to save them. He has to save the multiverse, and it's this like touching, beautiful moment between him and Felicity of being like, when it's all said and done, it's like, she's like, you say I'm the better half of you. We're each other's better halves, and she's like, the love that kind of exists between us now, that bigger than even the multiverse, even saving the universe, you know, because even Oliver being like, he never thought he was capable or deserving of love, and Felicity opened his eyes to that, and he's just like, my only regret is like, I didn't love, you know, we didn't start loving each other sooner. And she's like, there are no regrets when it comes to this situation, you know. Because even the Monitor doesn't want, you know, things. He's sad that things are playing out this way, but Oliver has to do what's coming up, because if he doesn't, that puts Felicity and Mia's life in danger, and your kids' lives in danger, and they're going to be necessary for what's coming afterwards. And so to me, this is all tying together. Like I said, this is obviously like the biggest Arrowverse thing, because let's not forget, and it's something I brought up before, this ties in directly into like a Flash thing that's come up this season. Nora's message that she found from her dad, it's like Barry left it for her and you don't know where he's at. I'm like, that's got to be a Crisis on Infinite Earth thing. So like, it's all coming together. I just didn't expect it to be a situation, because like, you know, it's like Oliver's not around. I was like, is he dead or is there something else to it? But it's like, and that's kind of the saddest thing, because he dies when he's away from Felicity. She can't even be there for him just because he's helping fight all of this, whatever is to come. So, but we do see at the end she's saying goodbye to the kids. She's not telling them everything that's going down, because for her, it's like, obviously she doesn't want to worry them, but it's like, she wants to go try and track down Oliver. In what capacity, we don't really 100% know yet. But for her, it's like, I know I can leave this to you guys because you've grown into such amazing kids. And the fact of the matter is, you know, I know I don't have to worry about protecting you anymore. So she's going off with the Monitor into whatever situation, like either trying to find and be there for Oliver during his final moments. Like, you know, maybe it's kind of like timeline wise, it's like it's all these years later, but when she goes to Oliver, it's going to pick up right where things end for him in whatever capacity it ends for him in, you know, the crossover in the Crisis of Infinite Earth. And that's the biggest thing I'm going out of this wondering. Like, I mean, for one, there's a lot of questions. One, like, what's up with the Ninth Circle? Also, why, you know, once again, how do we go from A to E? What was B, C, D, and D with all of this, like, you know, vigilantes being bad, but it seemed like they were good, where things ended off present day, which also begs the question, like, we're dealing with time and multiverse stuff. It's like, could there also be the possibility that things will change? But is this a future that necessarily needs to be changed? Is this kind of where things need to be on the right path? Or does Oliver need to be there for his kids so he can put them on the path to continue to be the heroes necessary? Or it kind of seems like this is all destined, that this is the way things need to play out. Not just how they're supposed to play out, but they need to play out. So for the future of the multiverse, you know? It's like this, because even at the end, Felicity was like, why does it have to be you? It's like, this is bigger than me, this is bigger than you, this is bigger than all of us. You know, this universe at stake, and if I can do anything to protect it, I have to. You know, that's the duty of a hero. So, obviously, we know Arrow, well, if you don't know, Arrow is coming back for an 8th but final season, which the way this is playing out, I'm like, I thought, because it's interesting, because I think, from what I was reading, not unless it has changed, I'll quickly look it up. So, yes, I looked it up to confirm it, but yes, it is only 10 episodes as I thought from before. I was just curious to see if they had changed or not. So that becomes a question of like, okay, so is that 10 episodes connected? Because I'm assuming, because obviously it's coming back in the fall with probably everything else, so the question then becomes like, because obviously it's a shorter season, so Arrow is probably going to end with the Crisis on Infinite Earth stuff crossing over, I'm assuming, not less like episode 9 or like some end stuff in the season is going to end with that, and then the final episode is just going to be purely an Arrow thing. I don't know, because obviously, once again, it's like Arrow started all of this in many different regards, not just a legacy it's set up on obviously Arrow, but also the legacy it's set up with the rest of the Arrowverse, which includes The Flash, which includes Legends of Tomorrow, which technically speaking includes Supergirl, even though that takes place on a different Earth, so it kind of falls in a different category, but it's still, you get what I'm talking about. Definitely with The Flash and Legends, so it's definitely going to be interesting. Like I said, I'm so curious to see how they handle the story, like what the story is going to be. Like I said, it is the passing of the torch and everything, so that's the thing, like, will we see like only little bits here and there about the original cast? Will it just focus on the new generation in the future? Will the entire next season take place in the future, and then we get rewinds to being like, oh, how we got to that potential future? Because there are still unanswered questions, like Roy's situation, because even William's like, you still never explain how you got to the island. He's like, that's a long story. And it's like, will that be something that gets answered? Like I said, how we go from A to E, so, or not, or, you know, how is the 8th and final season going to be structured? I'm so fascinated. See, I mean, obviously it's kind of sad because I'm like, I don't want these things to end, but at the same time, I'm so excited to see what they do to wrap this series up. You know, it's been a hell of a ride, and I'm excited to see how it ends. It's going to be, I think they're setting this up to be one of Arrow's greatest seasons. At least that's how I feel about it going into this, but we'll ultimately have to wait and see what they have in store for us with the final season. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and Goodbye.